What's up, witches? It's Luna here with another little blog about Beltane. The other day I sent you a video on how to do an indoor maypole. So today I want to talk a little bit about an outdoor maypole and how to actually do the maypole dance. Outdoor maypoles are incredible. They're wonderful. What you need, of course, is a big open space, hopefully that's level, that doesn't have like a bunch of holes that people can step in. When you're doing a maypole dance, you want to be able to focus on what you're doing so that you can, keep your place in the dance, and so you can focus your intent on, whatever you're weaving into the maypole. It's kind of hard because when you do a maypole dance, there's a lot of joy. It's a very joyful thing. And so, you don't necessarily want people like intently, but it all depends on your group. It all depends on the individuals. It depends if you set a group intent. How the group approaches the maypole is going to have everything to do with the nature of the dance and the quality of the dance. But to do one outdoors, you obviously need a great big pole. So, and it needs to be, I think the skinniest one we ever did was maybe 3 or 4 inches in diameter. A little bit bigger, 4 to 5 would be nice, but think about the fact that you have to find a very tall tree and a very straight tree, and that tree has to be sacrificed. The best case scenario would be to be able to go into the woods and find some deadfall that fits the bill, but if not, then the decision would have to be made: do we sacrifice a tree, or is there maybe, an artificial way we can go? I'm sitting here thinking about that carpet core that you use for the indoor maypole and wondering, if that might be usable for an outdoor one. It is like 12 feet tall. Most of the outdoor maypoles I've been involved with have been taller than that. Talking maybe 15 feet. I don't think they've gotten much bigger than that. At any rate, you need to have one long enough that you can put a good, 2 feet of it into the ground. Maybe not that deep, but of course, how much you put into the ground has to kind of be in proportion to how much is up in the air. If you have a really tall pole and not much in the ground, it's not going to stay too well. So I'll leave it to you to figure out, the height and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of different ways to attach things at the top. Most maypoles have a wreath at the top. And here's where we get to the symbology and the whole idea of Beltane being a pole in a hole. It's as simple as that. I mean, paganism is so wonderful because it's pretty graphic and pretty literal at times. And so, Beltane is the earth, the young goddess who is now in her womanhood and opening to the god, which is, the rays of the sun that come down to warm her up, to open her up so that his seed can be planted. Graphic and literal. So the whole ritual around an outdoor maypole, the erecting of the pole, is part of that ritual. And let's deal with the logistics first. You want to have a hole that is deep enough for, like I said, I'd say a foot at minimum, maybe a foot and a half, depending on how big your pole is. And okay, just, let's just get over the Beavis and Butthead moments right now. I'm going to be talking in sexual terms for the rest of this thing. So you dig the hole, and of course you want it to be, if your pole's like this wide, you want a hole that's going to be a lot wider than that, because same as indoor maypole, once that goes into the hole, you're going to be putting like stones, bricks, something around it that is going to really wedge it in. and up to you whether you want to cover over that hole and leave the maypole standing. Most people I know take it down afterwards because their land has, multi-uses, and you just don't leave the maypole up every year. When we did the indoor maypoles, I would take them home afterwards, and they would just kind of lie in my living room. And I remember one of them being out on the porch for a while, and then, it would get to the point where I would finally take the ribbons off. I usually reuse those ribbons for all kinds of stuff, and they got used up for gift wrapping. Imagine the energy that's in those ribbons for doing gift wrapping and things like that. So I'm recalling one Beltane when we were out at a friend's farm, and the hole had been prepared. The men were outside. They were preparing out there, and the preparation involves, of course, doing a smoke cleanse with sage. First of all, thanking the earth, asking permission to, cut into her, and consent matters. And then do a smoke cleanse, bless it with water. You might want to sprinkle just a little bit of ocean water around it, but you don't want to salt the earth. That's a terrible symbol. Salting the earth is what invading forces used to do in order to, take over control of a population. They would salt their fields and make them barren. So salting the earth makes it barren. You don't want to do that as a Beltane activity. But like I said, a little bit of ocean water, just so we have the earth and water, or just do plain water because you got the earth right there. You don't really need the salt. You can use the salt water to bless the people that are doing the actual work. So the men were outside doing that part. The women were in the barn drumming and chanting and getting our energy up. And of course, for Beltane, you are going to be decked in your finery. You're going to be dressed as saucy as you want to be. You are the goddess divine. So the women, when we were ready, we came processing out, doing our chant. And I'm trying to remember, I don't really remember what chant we did, but we processed out and we were dancing. We were there to inspire the men to raise the pole. So we went out, we did our dance, and the men were to watch. And when they felt inspired, then the pole got erected into the hole and, chalked in. And of course, remember too, before that pole goes up, all the ribbons have to be attached. So let me back up again to logistics. At the top, if you have a wooden pole, it's good to cut it off at the top. And you can put some channels in, saw kerfs. And in those channels, you can lay the wire across like I did, with the cardboard thing. I drilled holes and put the wires through those holes. So you could also do that. You could drill straight through. That would be the most secure. Then things can't pop off the top. But drill holes at 90-degree angles for the wire to go through, and then you wire it onto your, grapevine wreath or whatever you're using. All the ribbons get tied onto that, and then the pole goes up. So the dance. There are several rules that must be followed for the dance to work and the weaving to work. Number one, it's got to be an even number of dancers. If you end up with an odd number, you can either ask if someone would like to sit out. Sometimes somebody would rather sit out and drum, or is just willing to sit out. The other thing you can do is have people double up. So have people dance as a couple. So they'd have, be arm in arm and one person holding the ribbon. But you cannot have an odd number of dancers and have the weaving work out right. It's going to be a hot mess. So you've got your even, let's assume you have your even number of dancers. Let's assume you've got 18 dancers and you want them to stand around the pole and stand, holding their ribbon. So, how the ribbons are attached will determine the order of people, because you don't want ribbons crossed before you start the dance. So you've got everybody standing around holding their ribbon. And then what you need to do is have them count off 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And of course, those are going to alternate. Then all the ones face, you can say all the ones turn to your right. All the twos turn to your left. What will happen then is that everyone will be facing someone. Everybody will be facing their first partner. And if you are of my generation, I don't know if they did this after in PE, but in my generation, we did square dancing when I was in grade school. You know, horrifying and awkward, but fun in its own way too. And there is a move called the grand right and left. And this is the Maypole dance. So the way I teach the dance is you have someone facing someone else. And what you can do is go through this before people, you know, pick up their ribbons. So let the ribbons hang there, count off by ones and twos, have them turn however you want them to turn so they're facing. And then, you know, make sure you look around the circle, sort out if anybody got it wrong, and make sure that there's facing couple, facing couple, facing couple without any stragglers in between. Then you coach them through the grand right and left. And what you do is say, shake hands with the person in front of you. That means you're going to grab right hands. And then, while you're holding hands, walk past each other. So it goes this way. And as you're walking past, stick out your left hand. There's going to be another left hand coming at you. Let go of the first hand, walk past each other. Reach out, walk past each other. Reach out, walk past each other. Simple. It's very simple to do that way because you're holding on to someone's hand. And when you're holding their hand, it's impossible to go around them the wrong way, right? You have to go around them this way. You can't go around them this way without turning the whole thing around like one whole time. So that's easy. Let your group do that until they find the rhythm of it. Because for the Maypole dance, you're going to be removing the hands because you're going to be holding onto your ribbon. This opens the door for a lot of confusion to happen and for people to doubt whether they're going the right way, you know. So the way I talk about it once you've let go of hands is by shoulders, passing shoulders. So you want to pass right shoulders. You know, you're going to walk towards each other and your right shoulders will pass each other and then left shoulders will pass. You will also notice that when you're passing one way, you'll be going inside the other person, and then the next person you will be going outside them. This is probably the easiest way to sort it out, is I'm going to be going inside this person, and then I'm going to step outside the next person, inside this one, outside the next one. You can also look at it in terms of when you're inside, you're going to be going under someone's ribbon. When you go outside, you're going to be lifting your ribbon over their head. So inside and under, outside and over, inside and under, outside and over. You see how it's weaving, yeah? The problems occur here when the energy of the dance takes over and people forget what they're doing, right? You will always have, not always, but frequently, very commonly, have a thing where you're approaching someone. I know I'm supposed to go under this person, but this person's trying to go under you, and you just have to work it out on the spot and keep going. You'll know immediately if you chose wrong because you're going to have that same struggle with each of the next people who, know what the pattern is. So, okay, wait, this brings me to a point. What was it? Well, one point, obviously, is that you have to be mindful. That was it. So, number one important thing, even number of dancers. Number two important thing, under, over, inside, outside, inside, outside. Remember the pattern. Number three, you should never, ever, ever be passing someone that's going the same direction as you. You should never, ever, ever have someone pass you going the same direction as you. That's what's going to fuck it up. Because if everybody's moving at the same time, while you're going under, the person behind you is going to be going over. Is that true? No, I don't think that's true. At any rate, you shouldn't ever be passing someone because it's going to screw things up. All right? So this is a group working of the highest order. Everyone has to be mindful. Everyone has to be following the same pattern. And it's kind of like if you've ever done any choral singing or singing in harmony, where you really have to be concentrating on your part so that you don't get pulled off of your part and still be able to expand your hearing and hear all of the parts together. That takes practice. It's a skill. Same thing with the Maypole dance. You have to be able to remember the pattern, and it's perfectly acceptable to say that to yourself even out loud. Under, over, under, over. Sometimes things get messed up because some people are moving faster than other people, and you can get a bunch of people that are all bunched up trying to work out, and then a big gap that you have to cover. So it really helps. You, of course, are going to have some kind of rhythmic music happening, whether it's a live group of drummers or a recording. And if it's a recording, and I will tell you what my favorite Maypole song is. I'll put it below, but it's Vas. The group is Vas, V-A-S, and I'm trying to remember the album. It's either Sonata or Offerings, and the song is called Astrae, A-S-T-R-A-E, and it has just the perfect, like this low, intense drumming that's a very good rhythm, like 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you can get people walking in rhythm with the music, it can sort of calm down the people that want to go so fast, and then other people are trying to go in rhythm, and some people are trying to speed through. So as a group, there needs to be group mind to begin with. There needs to be an agreement of here's how we're going to move through this dance. And each individual has to take responsibility for holding their part in the dance and for following what the group has decided on. Because if somebody decides to go rogue, the weaving isn't right. Are you hearing like a little bit of a vibe of real life here? But, in this context, the Maypole is a spell. You are working fertility magic. And because it's a solar festival, you don't really have to concentrate on here's what I want to manifest. It's manifest all around you. It's just I want to weave my part in it, whatever that means to you. You can also have people write on their ribbons. If everybody's bringing their own ribbon and you're not supplying it all, you can have people write on their ribbon what their intention is, what their prayers are. I mean, you can do that even if you are supplying the ribbon. It's just that, they'll be attached later before the pole goes up. But it's wonderful to let people, write their prayers onto their ribbons. It makes it very individually powerful. And you can also, if you're working with a coven that's used to working together, or even if you're not, it's really nice to have the group decide on a general intention too for this year's Maypole. Maybe this year's Maypoles will be all about people being socially responsible and the pandemic going away, for the healing energy of spring to come in, and that we grow into responsibility, we grow into increasing health, and that's your Maypole working. That would be a wonderful intention. Just thinking in terms of healing the earth in general is a great, blanket Beltane intention. One more note is you might notice if there's any kind of Maypoles that go along, like if you live in a little town and they do a May Day celebration, or, even churches doing May Day celebrations, and they will put up a Maypole and the kids dance it. And that's awesome, because kind of the point of the magic of Beltane is to get kids. Yeah. That's the creative magic of the male and the female coming together. It creates life. And so you can look at it one way and say that's a very powerful symbol, having actual children dancing this Maypole. But it can also feel a little creepy, that, we have kids dancing sex magic. So depending, and there's no right or wrong, you think of it the way you want to think of it. But for me, for magical purposes, a maypole to be at its most powerful is an adult thing. You're not going to have kids, putting intention and magic and everything into it. But it's also nice to have them do it for fun so they can learn how to do it. And by the time they're adults, then you get really great maypole dancers. So like I said, no right, no wrong, just how you choose to look at it. The colors of the maypole, of course, it's springtime and there's, this abundance of variety of color in all the flowers. So it's wonderful to have ribbons of all various colors. It's wonderful to install beautiful fresh flowers at the top of the maypole. It's also perfectly acceptable to do silk flowers because you don't want the flowers up there kind of wilting and looking sad by the time you get around to dancing the maypole. So, silk flowers is also a great option. But I had a realization one time of what like the real spell work, if you want a very potent, intense, sexually charged, sex magic maypole. The men will dance. You'll have it men and women, men going one way, women going the other way. You will have the men going sunwise, which is clockwise, and they will have white ribbons. Guess why? You will have the women going widdershins, moonwise, anti-clockwise, and they will be carrying red ribbons. So yes, that is big, big, big magic. And now I'm going to wind up with a personal story of the magic of Beltane. Back on that land where, and I've told these stories before, so you may have heard them, but back on that land, the year we did the maypole with the women coming out and inspiring the men and everything, there was a couple in our group who had been struggling with infertility. And the woman had gone through cervical cancer. They just had, an uphill climb to have a child together, and it was their dearest wish. At Ostara, we had done a dedication of the fire pit on this land, and we built and made the teepee of wood, but we made a nest at the base of it with straw. We had a goose egg, and we had the woman bless the egg and place it into that nest, and then we had the man take a flaming brand and go in, break the egg, and start the fire. For Beltane, so this is another thing you can do for Beltane, is we always chose a king and queen of the May. You've heard about the May Queen. Well, there's a May King too. Now, these people can be partners. That's kind of the ultimate, but they don't necessarily have to be. It is more powerful if they are, but they can also be drawn by lottery. And those people for the day became royalty, and everybody else that was there served them for that day and gave them honor and called them Your Majesty, They became the god and the goddess of Beltane. So this is a great thing because we, especially in the U.S., are not accustomed to honoring other human beings in that way as royalty. So it can be kind of uncomfortable, but it's a really humbling and important experience, I think. Just to serve someone lovingly and not in a subservient way, but in, lovingly, willingly, humbly, and with all honor. So you have a person that's king and queen of the May. So for Beltane, that couple was chosen as king and queen of the May. The following Beltane, when they had their baby in their arms, we were going to crown the owners of the land as king and queen of the May. But Cliff and I had just gotten together the previous fall. So we were, just past 6 months as a couple. And I pulled a move and stepped in and said, "No, we're going to be king and queen of the May." And I didn't tell the owners of the land that we were just going to take that as an honorarium and pass the crown on to them. So, but I played it out like, "No, we're going to be." So we went in, and I told the previous king and queen, pass the crowns on. So I told them, here's what's going to happen. They're going to crown us. And so the first couple came, crowned us, and we immediately took the crowns off and said, "No, here's where the crowns belong." Lesson learned. When 1 month later I was pregnant with Tam, it was not intended. We had decided I had decided I was done at almost 40 years old. And Beltane decided otherwise. So make sure that the people taking on the roles of king and queen of the May know what they're stepping into. Beltane is about fertility. You make sure where that fertility lands. And I'm here to tell you that my cycles rearranged themselves in order for Tam to come through. I had also made a promise to let him through years before that. So, he was holding me to it. But still, make sure they know what they're getting into. Make sure that they, realize that this magic is potent. It's real and it's potent. And if they don't want that kind of fertility, that they need to make sure that door is closed and, the door to where they want it to go is open. So, let me think if there's other things for Beltane. Nothing I can think of right now. You use your imagination. It's there. This is what's wonderful about being a pagan, is that things make perfect sense. You don't have to do some intellectual contortions to derive meaning from our symbols. They're there. All you have to do to understand Beltane is look outside and say, how does that relate to me? How am I part of that system? Because we're so used to being not part of that system. Paganism is about reclaiming our part in that system and recognizing our part in that system and celebrating that and taking advantage of the potency and the energy that's there. All right, you guys, I hope you got something out of that. I hope you have a marvelous Beltane. Here in Northeast Ohio, where we had a couple days of 80 degrees this week, it is cold and raining. So thanks, Northeast Ohio. But, however you celebrate and whenever you celebrate, I wish you many blessings for Beltane. I wish you the great abundance and fertility of this season. And may it manifest in the way that you want and the way that benefits you the most. All right, you guys, thanks for hanging out with me. This is the Zen Witch. Blessed be.